All right, folks, check this out. They said it couldn't be done. Not long ago, they said it wasn't possible. The 30-year fixed mortgage rate below 6%. We're at 5.99%. Just to put this in perspective, folks, a year ago, 7.26%. It's obvious markets are reacting very favorably this week's efforts from the White House to make housing affordable. And I want to discuss these efforts right now with the U.S. Federal Housing Director, Bill Pulte. First of all, Bill, I got to say congratulations, my man. You guys, it was telegraphed, obviously. Everyone was waiting and waiting and waiting. How creative could the White House get? So let's discuss these. Pretty creative, all right? Let's start this week. We started with...
Don't bet against Donald J. Trump.
Hey, listen, I never have. So the institutions... getting the institutions out of the game, hoarding houses, jacking up prices. You knew immediately when you said, or the administration put that out there, folks are going to say, well, they don't own that many houses. They provide liquidity. What do you say to all these folks that think that they play a critical role in housing and should not be precluded?
I say that people should live in homes. Corporations should not. Corporations can't. What are we doing? Why are we letting these builders get away with selling to these big corporations, jack up rents, hurt people, hurt Americans? You know, Pocahontas and Biden, they talked about this for years. They complained and complained. They didn't do anything about it. And then President Trump and Vice President Vance had the guts, came out 2 days ago and said, we're going to ban institutional home buying. It's a great first step. You combine that with some of the stuff that we're doing on mortgage rates, and the American dream is going to be coming back. But boy, do we still have our work cut out for us.
No, there's no doubt about it. Listen, coming into this month, housing affordability was the worst in history of America. So, yeah, you've got a lot of digging out of this hole to do, without a doubt, that you inherited. You know, I do think it's important to point out, too, that these private equity folks, were among some of the biggest donors to the Trump campaign. And so, when you start arguing about who the person in the White House is working for, to say to your biggest donors, hey, listen, I want to help Main Street, and you guys have to take a back seat, I think is a big deal. Let's talk about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. You've been out there talking about...
Just to that point, you have a president, he doesn't give a damn necessarily about, what may or may not be politically correct. If it's in the best interest of the American people, he's going to do it. And so if you have private equity people or you have donors, he is focused, laser focused. I can tell you, because I've heard him say it, on what is the right thing for the American people. Banning institutional home buying is the right thing. And when you combine it with everything else that needs to get done, I firmly believe we can get out of this hole that Biden created for us these last 4 years.
Let's talk about Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac and how they can put pressure on home builders, because typically it's the general knowledge or the general consensus is that there's not much they can do. But you've explained, or you've been trying to explain, that there's a toolbox, right, that you can actually use Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac to improve housing affordability.
Well, I don't need to explain it, Charles. People understand it. People who know. The builders, they can pretend that they don't know, but they know. They know very well how much power Fannie and Freddie have. They just aren't accustomed to a president who even knows that they exist. President Trump is the first president who has realized that Fannie and Freddie not only exist, but now he's utilizing Fannie and Freddie for the benefit of the American people. And all of a sudden, the builders and the title insurers and the mortgage insurers and the credit bureaus, everybody's finally saying, wow, we can't get away with certain things anymore. We've got somebody who really knows what he's doing in the Oval Office, and he does. And I think you're going to be very excited with what you hear in a couple of weeks in Davos. And the president is laser focused on the housing market. I'm very confident we're going to get this thing turned around, Charles. But as I said, we still got a lot of work cut out for us.
Sure. I know Commerce Secretary Lutnick met with home builders today. The administration is known for using carrots and sticks. We see some of the sticks. What are the carrots? Because home building stocks are doing very well today.
Well, one of the things we've done is we did what we did with Fannie and Freddie. The president decided to do something there. That's a huge thing for the builders. So, look, we've done a lot of really good things for the builders. Charles, I'll mention one thing. So far, we haven't capped builders. We haven't capped how much liquidity they can get from Fannie or Freddie. We haven't prohibited them from using, options, which in some cases, hides, for lack of a better word, what their land positions are. We haven't asked for a lot of these different things. So there are a lot of things that Fannie and Freddie are letting the builders not necessarily get away with, but are being we're very helpful to the builders. And so there needs to be some support from the builders, and I'm very confident that the builders will step up, and the minority of builders who don't step up, obviously all options are on the table. Our preference is to work constructively with the free market.
Bill, mortgage spreads, the 30-year mortgage, as I started at the top, all moving in the right direction.
Huge.
You know, a lot of folks on the street saying the Federal Reserve doesn't have a role in any of this, right? That they can no longer move the long end of bond yields. That the bond yields are unresponsive. That mortgages have been unresponsive. You are out there publicly calling for Powell to be fired. So I guess you disagree. I think you believe maybe if they continue with lowering the Fed funds rate, it will have a positive impact on mortgage rates as well.
Of course, we really need the Fed to step up. We need Jerome Powell to be gone. It can't happen soon enough. What he's allowed to happen with the building and what he's allowed to happen with what I believe to be as an alleged mortgage fraudster in Lisa Cook, you know, these things need to be taken care of. We need a good Fed chairman. I think the president will make the right decision, and that's really where we'll see long-term change. Fannie and Freddie and the administration are all focused on fixing this housing market, but we need a strong Fed chair and not this, clown show that we have over at the Fed right now.
All right, I have to ask, now you're talking about it a little bit more. When are they going public? Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, everyone wants to know. Do you have a timetable?
That's up to the president. I'd say he's probably going to decide on it in the next month or two. But you know how our president is. He could decide tomorrow. He could decide anytime. So it's entirely up to the president. We stand ready to go, not just on this, but also use our tools on the institutional home buying ban. Whatever the president asks for, we'll get it done.
I got less than a minute to go, Bill. President Trump has never been a Republican in the grand old party sense of the word. So a lot of folks on the right have pushed back on these policies. But is this more of a realistic approach to capitalism where you have the so-called K-shaped economy and some folks are doing extraordinarily well, but most are struggling?
Well, we can't have a situation where we have a free market, but we have companies ripping people off. And you look at what's happened, and I don't want to say necessarily specific companies, but you look at what happened with the credit scoring companies or the credit bureaus, or you look at what's happened with a lot of these companies that, kind of fly below the radar before this president came into office. We can't have anti-competitive behavior in our markets. And so my job is actually charged with, Charles, making sure that there's competition in the mortgage market, and we're going to do that. So we're all for the free market, but at the same time, we need to have a competitive market, and it needs to benefit the American people, where the American people aren't being ripped off and having a president like Joe Biden allow it to happen. President Trump isn't going to allow for it, and we're going to fix this housing market.
Yeah. I think it begins with putting Main Street before the biggest donors. I really do.
Director Pulte, just did that. He just did that.
I know.
It's amazing.
Hey, Director Pulte, you've been doing a great job, my man. Hopefully we'll see you